Hey guys, check out my jacket. It looks as if I were working in Gazprom. So, in the world, we have got so many crazy stereotypes about Russians. We never smile, we're so rude, alcoholic, and we're the toughest people on the planet. And partly, I can tell you, it is not that far away from reality, and today I am going to try to explain you why. If you wanna know, I have spent most of my childhood in Belarus. It is a small post-Soviet country nearby Russia, and to there the progress from Western Europe came even later. So welcome to my video about my post-Soviet childhood, or why Russians are so tough. So firstly, yes, we do not smile a lot. People do not smile on streets so much because, dude, look at the weather. I'm sure you wouldn't be smiling in -30 and total darkness either. And before, even in the early 2000s, the winters were way colder. And this is where our iconic childhood outfits come from. I still remember how I used to have this little funny fur coat, which used to keep me very warm. And my grandma additionally would wrap me in multiple blankets and put on little sledge and carry me around like this, because obviously when you're 3 and it's -25, you cannot walk in the layer of snow which is taller than you. And also in villages, when times got especially cold, you would get something like a huge Gazprom or from any other factory jacket of your grandfather, and we used to call it fufaika. In general, I think the village life is exactly what has contributed so much to Russian toughness. Because the thing is, in a lot of Russian families, even if they live in cities right now, there are still some grandmas living in village. And in summer, when you're a kid and you have summer holidays, your parents of course wanna get rid of you and send you away to your grandma. And living in a Russian village is such a unique experience. I think you can see such things only there. I hopefully will attach at least some pictures for you there, so you will understand even what am I talking about. But my grandma had a house with a huge territory which was not looked after at all. By the way, if you want to know more about my grandma's life or life in small Belarusian villages, I've got a separate vlog about it in my channel. So there was no central heating in this house, and in winter it would be, of course, especially cold. So she had this huge Russian cooker. I'm not sure about how to call it exactly. It would be kind of fireplace, but closed. And it would just warm out all the house with this fire inside. And when we were kids and it was cold, we would just climb on this cooker kind of thing and try to rest there, warm up, and so on. And talking about the summers in village, it would be just so epic. My grandma used to use her little grandchildren as small free workers. It must be something a little bit illegal for you in Europe, but actually in Russia and Belarus and such countries, it is more than okay. In here, there is kinda nothing criminal about grandchildren helping their grandmas to keep their household and such things. So my main occupation in summer was collecting Colorado beetles from potato. If you are not very strong in biology, same as me, I will explain you a bit now. My grandma has bloody plantations of potato. She really has enormous fields just to grow potatoes. Yes, she is a true Belarusian. And the potato itself, what you eat, is inside the ground, but above it there is a little green bush, and exactly on it there are these Colorado beetles. These are small bugs that eat and damage these bushes. And at that time there would be no remedy or no poison which would elevate those bloody beetles. And that's why the most efficient way, which my grandma has found, is to make her grandchildren walk through potato fields and collect them. But it was kind of fun for us because later on me and my cousin have invented an amazing game. We would call it Colorado races. We would collect lots of these poor bugs, draw some lines on the ground, and then create kind of races between them. We would check whose bug runs faster, and the winner would get some rocks. We had lots of little rocks, and it was our inside game currency. And yeah, if you wonder, these bugs almost never escaped. We barely saw them flying, and it was more than enough to keep them in open jars and feed with potato leaves. And later on, our game evolved even more, and we started to add other bugs in there. I remember once she has found some kind of caterpillar or worm who would be just the fastest. And of course, this thing would win every single race. And what I did, I have collected enough stones, negotiated the price with her, and bought out this caterpillar. Unfortunately, I cannot transmit stones for you into US dollars, but you have got to believe me that the price was very, very high. But it totally paid off, because then it would be me who would be winning all the races. Yeah, and also I want to tell you about another thing which we used to practice in village. My grandma used to always keep pigs. She still does. And basically the system was she would buy this pig when it is a baby, then bring it up, feed it, and in 1 year it would be a huge fat pig. By the way, they are kind of dangerous when they are so big, if you didn't know. And then this pig would be killed for meat. Right now all the animal defenders and vegans will unsubscribe from me, but guys, I'm so sorry, it was my childhood. It's just the culture of this country. So when this pig would be killed, we would have a special holiday called Svizhina. There is no analogy for it in English, don't look for the translation, it is just a holiday about killing a pig. Why was it such an occasion? Is because all the family would gather that day to just help to clean this pig and take the meat out and such things. From morning to evening, everyone would be just walking around and trying to help each other, and you would see all your cousins, brothers and faraway relatives, and in the end our grandma would cook amazing, delicious machanka. Machanka is a Belarusian national dish. It consists of sour, very thick pancakes and a huge pan with lots of oil, meat and fat, and it would be just so delicious. So I'm again so sorry, I love animals of all kinds, and of course we shouldn't kill animals just like this, but in my childhood it was very different. And in general, our vacation in village would always be so fun and so unique. And right now, when I grew up, I understood how actually epic it was. When you are a kid, you take these things as something very usual. But when you grow up and you experience more and you explore different cultures, you understand that in most of the countries, children couldn't come through such things. And another thing that made us Russians so tough is our Russian schools. If you want to explore more, I have got a vlog about an English lesson in my school in Belarus, but that thing was very soft and nice and far not like most of the lessons at that school. I think Russian schools, especially in the places that didn't evolve so much after Soviet Union, are just a completely different thing. There we would just sit in cold and winter, in a little bit dirty, a little bit broken, old rooms, with your neighbor at one desk. By the way, I don't know why do they have desks only for one person in America right now, but when you sit together with someone, it actually is a very good thing. Number one, as a kid, of course, you're making more friends like this, and when you grow up a little bit, it is cooperation. It is very easy to get better marks if you sit with someone who is better than you in something and who would help you. And at my school time, I would always cooperate really well with my neighbor and with two girls sitting behind us, because I was strong in one thing, they were strong in some other things, and it would be such a teamwork. But of course, Russian schools have so many things which I look back at right now and think that they're so nuts. It was okay for teachers to yell at students and hit them in there. Of course, no one would be doing that every lesson all the time, but sometimes when teachers would get extremely mad with someone, they would hit them and they would be forgiven for that. And I remember we had one extra tough teacher in our school. We used to call her Filia, and she was a teacher of history and art. And she was so obsessed with her subjects, it was almost impossible to be at her lesson. For you to understand, the lesson of art is not the most serious lesson in Russian schools. And generally, children just sit on it, kinda do something, maybe write something a little bit, but in general, you don't even receive a mark for it. But she would make us do something extremely special and then ask questions and make us redo something if she didn't like that. And then she never liked how do we dress up. Like, it's kinda not her business, but she thought it was. She would always explain us how terrible we look like. We looked like homeless, we looked like we were smoking behind the school. She didn't like our clothes, our hairstyles, and so on. And it was just so cringe and at the same time so terrible to listen to her all the time. And in our school still lives a legend about how she has broken a big wooden stick on the back of one student. That was just crazy, but we survived. When you're a child, you once again consider these things to be very normal, but when you grow up, you look back and you're like, that was traumatizing. And then I remember very good our school canteen. We used to eat there for some very little money, like every meal would cost us 2.5 rubles or something, and we would pay for that in advance for whole months. And the food there was a little bit weird, a little bit low quality, but we would eat it because we were hungry. And of course it would always smell terrible from our canteen. But what funny was there would be almost all the time some bread on table. Basically it was just a huge room with lots of long tables. Again, everyone would sit just together, and on them there would be plates with bread. And no matter how old we were, no matter how much of grown-ups and civilized people we would always go and steal this bread from plates. It was especially funny because grade 1 was doing it, grade 11 was doing it, everyone was doing it. And in grade 11 we would have a small war between us and grade 3, grade 2, grade 1, because they would take bread from our table, from our plates. And sometimes, even when we were eating, these kids would just come, take the bread and run away. It is totally not what civilized people in developed countries should be arguing about, but in our school it was like this, and it was really so crazy. But then of course we learned to guard and protect our bread. And then there were our small misty toilets with no doors. Maybe the school administration would try to stop children from smoking in toilets this way, but it didn't work because when you would enter a toilet, it would really look like there is a mist in there because there would be so much smoke from smoking children. And still the toilets would be just in terrible condition. In some of them there were just no doors, in some of them there were doors, but they were almost not closing and you had to hold them like this with your hands while doing your stuff. And in some of them there were just no doors in between toilet seats, and it was pretty uncomfortable. So every time you would go to toilet, it would be such an adventure. So never ask a man about his salary, a woman about her age, and a Russian girl about her school. And in general, if I come back to this topic of bread, for some reason in Russia and Belarus we had some special relationship with it. I don't know why, we just love bread there too much. Mostly we used to have this kind of black brick kind of bread, and sometimes when you would buy it, you would walk on street and you would just start biting it because it's so delicious and you're so hungry and you're going home and you just want to bite this bread. And of course, phones and computers also came much later. It is a little bit hard for me to understand why it is said that Zoomers were born with phones and devices in their hands, because I have got my first phone maybe at the age of 11, and it was not a smartphone, it was like this, maybe that small phone with buttons from which you could only call maybe. And still for me it was such a big thing, it was such an expensive thing in my brain, and I was so worried to lose it that I was really overthinking about it so much. Maybe that's why young people in Russia are still not so much addicted to their devices and they are still a little bit more sociable, because in our childhood still there was this thing that the main games are outside of your home with children from your district. And sometimes, by the way, these games were about who would jump from a garage roof in a better way. There were really lots of garages in my area in a small town in Belarus, And especially guys would literally compete who would jump from its roof better. By the way, no one would really die from it, like maybe sometimes someone would break a hand or a leg, but in general, everyone is still safe and sound and being okay. So I hope now you can see where from do come all these Russian stereotypes and what is so much wrong with us. I hope you had a more peaceful childhood either, and I also hope you enjoyed this video. Most likely this video will come out weeks after it is recorded, but recently we have hit 1000 subscribers and it is a very big thing for me. You guys are just an incredible and very supportive audience, and I want you to help me get even further. That would make me the happiest person on the planet if you subscribe to my channel, liked and watched my videos, and wrote me some nice words in comments. I will see you all in my next video about life in Russia.